economy and innovation in Nigeria. She has developed expertise in legal research, policy development, and sustainability. She's also a very active member of the Nigerian Bar Association and an associate of the Institute of Chartered Mediators and Counselators. She's a dedicated volunteer with Yali Network, and she drives very impactful community programs. While Barrister Uwem is going to take over, I just want to do a little bit of introduction of Tovero Energy. We are a clean energy company, and our focus is into everything renewable energy, not limited to innovations. Of course, that's what everybody is into. But then we also drive research and development. We have done a lot of research around the e-cooking space for MEX, and you can go online to the MEX website. You see a lot of our publications. We've done practical researches where we did controlled cooking tests. We've also published readiness assessments for Nigeria as well as for Sierra Leone. We're also involved in a lot of productive use of renewable energy. We have projects coming up. We are also involved in research and development. As a matter of fact, we'll be hosting the third edition of the Africa International Conference. Clean energy and energy storage has been very impactful. If you're a researcher on this call, I would advise you to take advantage of that. You could publish your papers, you could present your ideas, you just attend and be a part of those that are driving change in the clean energy sphere. So, Barrister Owen, I'll be handing over to you to take over from here. And let's enjoy the rest of the session. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for the introduction, Esukipo Conte. Once again, good afternoon from Nigeria and wherever you're joining us. I am Barrister Wem Johnson, and I'll be moderating this episode of the 54th Sparks Clean Cooking webinar brought to you by Tovero Energy Limited in collaboration with the Veronica Anthony Foundation and the Energy Nexus Network. Welcome once again. I would quickly proceed to take you through the agenda for today, the sequence of activities for today. So for today, would start with, the welcome and introduction has already been taken by the operations manager of Tovero Energy Limited, Esukipo Conte. So after that, I would lead us to the paper presentation, which will be taken by a very seasoned expert in the clean cooking sector. Then we'd proceed to the poll questions after the presentation. They're basically questions that test your general knowledge about clean cooking initiatives, about regulatory frameworks and the level of implementation at the local level. Then we'd move swiftly to the panel discussions where we'd be having experts from Nigeria and Uganda joining in to share their perspective, to share their experience and their different country context with regards to the state of the regulatory frameworks with respect to clean cooking and how the gap would be bridged between the national policies and local implementation at the grassroots level. Then we'd move to the question and answer session, which covers questions from the paper presentation, from the panel discussion, and any other question in the chat box. Then we would have a brief session about upcoming events, and then would close. So without much ado, since the time is already fast spent, I would move on to introduce the presenter for the paper presentation session. He's no other person than Emmanuel Nabajo, who is the Associate Officer for Management at the NREP, working to advance sustainable renewable energy solutions in Uganda with 2 years experience. He previously apprenticed with the Renewable Energy Department at the Ministry of Energy and contributes to key national strategies, including Uganda's National E-Cooking and Biogas Strategy. He has worked on various renewable energy projects and organizations like ICLEI Africa, FAO, and the Environment Institute. Emmanuel has also played a key role in organizing Uganda's Renewable Energy Conference 2023 and 2024. So we would proceed to bring on Emmanuel Nabaho. He will bring in perspective from Uganda on the regulatory frameworks and how the gaps from the national policies can be bridged with the implementation at the local level. So over to you, Emmanuel. Kindly put on your screen and begin your presentation. Please, whoever that has his or her mic on should please mute so that it won't disrupt the presentation. Over to you, Emmanuel. Please go ahead. Believe that has been addressed. You can go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Perfectly, can hear you.
Okay, I was just trying to turn on my video. Yes, so I'm Emmanuel Nabaho, as I have been introduced, an associate officer, manage National Energy Platform, and I'll be providing a preamble to our discussion today by offering a case study of Uganda. And our overview, I'm going to first introduce you to the National Renewable Energy Platform, or NREP, as we refer to it. I'll give an introduction to the presentation, the need for regulation, Uganda's energy policies with a focus on clean cooking, some clean cooking initiatives in Uganda, the institutional framework, existing regulatory framework, strengthening the regulatory frameworks, what Uganda has done so far, and what challenges remain, and some recommendations before I hand the floor back over to Barrister Owen.
Just before you begin, could you kindly put your slides on the slideshow mode?
Oh. How is it now?
It's still like the way it was previously.
It worked earlier. I don't know what's happening now.
Okay, it's better now. It's in slideshow mode now. You can proceed.
Okay. So the National Renewable Energy Platform is a national initiative by stakeholders in Uganda's renewable energy space. And it is the main goal of the National Renewable Energy Platform is to provide sector coordination. So we want to eliminate the silo approach by bringing together different key stakeholder groups, that is the government, through different ministries, departments, and agencies. You have the private sector, development partners, academia, financing institutions, and civil society organizations. And I believe the best way to bring to you what we do is by stating our specific objectives, where we have coordination, sector direction, capacity building, partnerships, knowledge hub, research and development, and oversight of Uganda's renewable energy sector. One of the key events that we hold is, I believe, similar to your African International Conference on Clean Energy and Energy Storage, and that is our annual Renewable Energy Conference and Expo, of which in the last edition in 2024, we had 20% of the sessions under the clean cooking thematic area. We had an average of 1,480 delegates over the 3 days, and we had delegates representing over 31 countries, and that is why we refrain from referring to it as a national energy conference because of the international participation. In fact, I would like to invite anyone that will be able to make it. We usually have it around the same time, October, November. And lastly, about the conference, last year we had culture leaders in Uganda demonstrating cooking using these electric pressure cookers that are part of clean cooking. And here in the image that is on the screen, we have a representative from the Acholi chiefdom. We have the king of the Buruli kingdom and a representative from the Busoga kingdom in Uganda. Yes, so an introduction to today's presentation, the case study of Uganda. In spite of our significant renewable energy potential, more than 80% of cooking fuel comes from traditional biomass that has been linked to severe health risks, specifically for women and children. And in response to the massive felling of trees for energy, an executive order was issued in 2023 banning the commercial production of charcoal in northern Uganda, which is where charcoal primarily comes from in the country. So this has presented a double-edged sword of an opportunity where we have the prices of charcoal going up, charcoal and firewood going up, and that has created an opportunity to advance alternative technologies and fuels that will bridge this gap. But at the same time, now there's an influx of these technologies, and regulation has never been more important to protect consumers. So here we just have a distribution of cooking fuels in Uganda, and I will be curious to find out if we have a similar situation in Nigeria or any other countries that are represented on this call. And as you can see, firewood takes the lion's share, followed by charcoal, and all the other energy sources just find a place to fit in at the top there. And firewood is mostly utilized in the rural settlements in Uganda, where they're using the three-stone fire and some other stoves, while charcoal is primarily used in Uganda's urban areas. So the major challenges to clean cooking adoption as we have them in Uganda are awareness, finance, accessibility, and regulation. And awareness is awareness is a challenge because people have been stuck in the old ways, that is with the cooking technologies they have been using, but then also targeted campaigns. We may be flawed in the way we're approaching awareness campaigns. In Uganda, we're currently conducting some awareness campaigns, and you'll be shocked to find out that the people we believe have this information actually do not. Those are our perceived elites. We have finance, which brings in the upfront cost of clean cooking technologies, but also the cost of creating awareness. Because if you're to use mainstream media to create awareness on clean cooking, you will appreciate how hefty that budget will be. We have accessibility, where you have the clean cooking technologies not reaching certain parts of the country and inadequate transportation and distribution networks. And finally, regulation, of which without regulation, you have very many counterfeit products coming onto the market, and those can hurt consumer confidence, which in turn affects customer confidence in these clean cooking technologies and their willingness to transition to clean cooking fuels. So the need for regulation, we have some things that regulation would bring us. We have safety and quality assurance, market stability, sustainability, and accountability. Yes, so for safety and quality assurance, we have protection of the consumers, and that also increases consumer confidence. That ties into accountability, where you have regulations establishing mechanisms for feedback and protection of the customers, where these companies are to be held accountable in case they fail to meet the stipulated standards. We have market stability, where if you have certain standards for a product on the market, if every company is putting in the same amount to meet the standards, then you will not have competition where a player that is putting in extra costs to make sure that their products meet the required standards is competing with another person that does not have to incur these additional costs and having them in the same market. Then we have sustainability, of which you have regulations that emphasize sustainability in the production of certain renewable energy technologies and fuels. So here we have an overview of Uganda's energy policies, trying to see a focus on clean cooking. So first, in 2002, we had an energy policy that points out the significant role of biomass in Uganda's energy mix and points out that the stoves that were being used at the time were inefficient. And it also mentions the labor and health burdens associated with biomass energy use. In 2007, we had a separate renewable energy policy focusing on only renewable energy. And this one outlined policy measures to reduce tax on liquefied petroleum gas and value-added tax on biogas construction. It also introduced a policy measure to sustainably license and tax charcoal production and transport, but it did not have specific regulatory measures or standards to guide the adoption and implementation of clean cooking solutions. And in 2023, that is when we had the two policies merged with a strong focus on clean cooking. And we, for the first time, have detailed health effects aside from the environmental effects of cooking with traditional biomass. And in the next slide, we can see clean cooking in Uganda's energy sector, where we have a number of policy statements where the government commits to the support of Uganda's clean energy sector, where the government will promote equitable widespread use of affordable, clean, and efficient cooking technologies. We have some commitments to promoting the access to liquefied petroleum gas, and then we have sustainable utilization of biomass because it is still a big part of our energy mix. On the policy targets, we have 50% of the population using clean cooking fuels by 2040. We have increased diversification of energy sources. It would be a good point to mention that Uganda is incorporating an integrated clean cooking strategy where you have multiple clean cooking technologies being explored, not limiting the population to just one. And we have increased electricity consumption, of course, for electric cooking, which is a part of clean cooking. So among the strategies we have mentioned in the 2023 energy policy, we have strengthening legal, regulatory, and commercial frameworks, supporting local manufacture of these technologies and fuels, providing subsidies and incentives, empowering women, youth, and marginalized groups, and establishing training centers, as well as a slight focus on the promotion of purified and packaged biogas for cooking. So we have clean cooking appearing in different strategies and plans for Uganda. That is the Energy Transition Plan, National Development Plan, and Uganda National Climate Change Policy. And here I will be going into some clean cooking initiatives that are currently happening in Uganda. We have the Electricity Access Scale-Up project that is seeking to improve access to electricity. You have a rural electrification part in here, but we also have a provision for financing of clean cookstoves for institutions and households, and a 30 to 50% subsidy for clean cooking solutions using solar briquettes, ethanol, biogas, and liquefied petroleum gas. The only requirement to make use of this subsidy is to have your Ugandan national ID, and you'll be able to get a clean cooking solution or with a subsidy ranging from 30 to 50%. We have the LPG starter kit campaign by the government of Uganda, where it seeks to distribute 1 million free 13-kilogram liquefied petroleum gas starter kits to households that will demonstrate ability to refill these gas cylinders. And so they're getting these starter kits for free, and refills are going to be on them. That is an effort to reduce the high initial cost of getting the kit. We have the strengthening entrepreneurial ecosystem for clean cooking, or the CCC, which involves the African Biodigester component, which has the construction and installation of 50,000 small-scale biodigesters by the end of 2025, and a clean cooking component that has a target of 12,000 households split right in the middle, with 6,000 benefiting from electric cooking and 6,000 benefiting from advanced biomass cookstoves. Then the Forest Management and Sustainable Value Chain Project by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United States. And it has the promotion of sustainable charcoal production and packaging practices. Here we also have the carbonized briquettes. This year and last year, we had some certification programs and some trainings happening for charcoal and briquette producers to help them become compliant to the regulations and standards. Then we have the Clean Cooking Program supported by the UK government, which has supported the establishment of a clean cooking unit within the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. We have the promotion of access to clean cooking solutions in informal settlements in Uganda, which targets to reach at least 6,000 households within these informal settlements. And then we have the behavioral change campaign, which is the behavioral change communication for electric cooking project in Uganda that is currently being conducted by the National Renewable Energy Platform, supported by the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development and Modern Energy Cooking Services. So this campaign targets schools, cultural and religious institutions, and public spaces. And just yesterday, we had an outreach campaign at the Buganda Kingdom. We had the Minister of Energy and Mineral Development in attendance, and she demonstrated cooking using an electric pressure cooker. She prepared some traditional dishes we have here. She was joined with the members of the Luchiko of Buganda Kingdom. Those would be the ministers in the kingdom. Then I would like to just take us through the institutional framework. We have government and regulatory bodies where we have the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development leading in policy and strategy formulation. We have the Uganda National Bureau of Standards, which is our standards body and sets standards, creates awareness of the standards and also enforces standards. We have the Electricity Regulatory Authority, which appears on this list because of our electric cooking tariff that will be mentioned a little later, that is meant to incentivize clean cooking. And we have the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, which allocates budgetary resources to clean cooking programs and also influences taxation on clean cooking solutions. We have financing institutions like the Uganda Energy Credit Capitalization Company that is providing the subsidies to clean cooking solutions. We have microfinance institutions and saving and credit corporations. We also have the banks that provide concessional loans for clean cooking initiatives. And then we get to the coordination bodies and development partners. The National Renewable Energy Platform, as introduced earlier, coordinates multi-stakeholder engagement and promotes knowledge sharing and advocacy for clean cooking. But we also have the Uganda National Alliance on Clean Cooking, with whom we work very closely, and it brings together different companies in Uganda's clean cooking space. It is a membership-based organization, and it also conducts awareness creation. So in the behavior change campaigns where the National Renewable Energy Platform has been going to various cities in Uganda, we have had the Uganda National Alliance on Clean Cooking right there with us, demonstrating how these technologies work and also selling where they can. They're actively trying to recruit suppliers within these cities that we have gone to try and create a distribution network within those cities. Then we have the development partners that make all of this possible because of their support they render through the government of Uganda to these initiatives. Yes, so on this slide, I just want to mention a few bits of the regulatory framework that we have in Uganda. We have a mix of voluntary and compulsory standards in the clean cooking sector. These are these are created in a consultative process with the Uganda National Bureau of Standards, and we have standards for household biomass stoves, solid biofuels. This is for carbonized briquettes, and then lamp charcoal. Those are all voluntary standards. And then we have some compulsory standards, such as those for domestic biogas stoves. We have those for liquefied petroleum gas, household electrical appliances. This has the ovens, cooking hobs, and similar appliances. And then we have specifications for denatured ethanol that is intended to be used for cooking. Standards for electric pressure cookers that apparently do not fall in the line of these household and similar electrical appliances are under development with the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development in collaboration with the Uganda National Bureau of Standards. And here we have some key actions to strengthen regulatory frameworks. In the middle, we have these strategies, and on the side, we have what Uganda has done in this regard. So in updating policies to align with modern energy needs, Uganda revised its energy policy and incorporated a strong focus on clean cooking, and supporting strategies are under development to offer targeted approaches to achieving these set milestones, such as the National Integrated Clean Cooking Strategy and biogas strategies. We have developing and strengthening regulations on clean cooking fuels and technologies, where the UNBS has developed and updated multiple policies in the clean cooking space and occasionally carries out review of these standards with different companies through the associations in the sector, like the Uganda National Alliance on Clean Cooking. We have incorporation of tax exemptions and incentives into Uganda's fiscal policies. This is meant to incentivize compliance with standards, of which we have a zero tax on denatured ethanol and a VAT waiver on ethanol stoves. We have a VAT waiver on liquefied petroleum gas, and we also have an electric cooking tariff that is meant to incentivize cooking with electricity. On eliminating conflicting mandates, the government of Uganda incorporated a programmatic approach, moving away from the sector approach to development of renewable energy projects that include clean cooking. And we also have facilitation of sector coordination through the National Renewable Energy Platform. And on mandating industry compliance, the Uganda National Bureau of Standards has a quality mark that is needed if to demonstrate the quality of the technology or fuel, and is only issued once it has been proven that a company is compliant. And we also have the sector alliances that incorporate some self-regulation practices. And
Just
yes,
to remind you that you have less than 3 minutes to round up.
perfect. And so there are some challenges that remain. I would be curious to find out if these are some of the similar challenges in Nigeria, but we have standards enforcement where we have constraints in terms of personnel, funding, and equipment for carrying out market surveillance. We have limited incentives for compliance where you're still having those that are tax compliant and incurring that extra cost to become tax compliant, competing in the same market with those that do not actually follow these standards. We have limited awareness by both the consumers and producers, and then limited testing infrastructure, where in Uganda we have 2 certified laboratories to conduct tests on clean cooking appliances. And here we just have a few recommendations. Through our behavioral change and in behavioral change communication for electric cooking project, we have realized the power that is in creating awareness. We have gone to communities and created awareness with the leaders, and these leaders have committed to creating creating forums in their cities and becoming clean cooking champions, so that they can make sure that the message of clean cooking continues in their cities. And we also need to strengthen sector associations as they provide an avenue for internal regulation and a streamlined communication channel. And we also need to develop innovative financing mechanisms to enhance the delivery of clean cooking solutions to the population, especially now that we're seeing we may be having some funding cuts coming in due to what is happening on the international scene. I thank you very much. In case you want to reach out to find out what the National Renewable Energy Platform is doing, our website is at the bottom of the screen. That is nrep.ug. You can check out you can subscribe to our newsletters. And I also, once again, want to extend an invitation to the Renewable Energy Conference and Expo in case anyone is able to make it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel, for that robust and very detailed presentation. I mean, you really tried to manage your time, and from your presentation, I can see that a lot is really going on in Uganda to promote clean cooking adoption. You've talked about a lot of issues, the challenges, the recommendations. You've even talked about the ban on charcoal, because I mean, it's one thing to want people to adopt clean cooking, and yet there are still loose ends with regards to policies around dirty cooking fuels like charcoal. So it's really a positive one to hear that there is a charcoal ban on there's ban on charcoal to discourage cooking with dirty fuels. That was such an amazing presentation. And for the viewers, for the attendees, if you have questions, please do well to drop them in the chat box. And just to also add that this session is streamed and will be shared on YouTube. So in case you have anyone that could not join in, or you still want to catch up in details with regards to the session, you can always refer to our YouTube channel to watch. Without much wasting of time, we would proceed to the poll questions. We'll take the poll questions now. full question session won't last more than 5 minutes. 5 minutes is even too much. Do well to engage in the full questions. We look forward to your feedback and your general knowledge about this topic. Be ending the poll in the next 1 minute, so do well to engage with the questions. We look forward to your feedback. Okay, we are rounding up, and this is the end. Amazing feedback, amazing results on the level of awareness. Beautiful. Good. This is the end. Okay. I believe everyone took part in the poll questions section. We won't be spending much time on that again. We'd move to the paper presentation. So once again, we are still on the episode 3 of the 51st Past Clean Cooking webinar, and the topic remains strengthening regulatory frameworks for clean cooking, bridging the gap between national policies and local implementation, and would have experts from Nigeria and Uganda join in to dissect this topic. We are all aware that countries are trying their best to establish policies at the national level, but there seems to be a gap at the local level with regards to implementation. Everything is done at the upper level, and then on the ground, at the grassroots level, there still exists a gap. And our panelists will be sharing their insights, their experience with regards to this topic, and also give out recommendations on the solutions and the way forward. And I rightly introduced Emmanuel earlier, and his profile was being read, so would proceed to Biodun Alaure. He will be joining us to also partake in this panel discussion as panelist. He has a multidisciplinary background in diverse areas comprising accountancy, marketing, strategic management, business re-engineering, and management as well. Presently, he is the managing director for EnviroFit International in West Africa and is responsible for the company's business operations. He's also in charge of sales, manufacturing, developing distribution, and carbon pricing for cook stoves, with special emphasis on sales of credit-related products. His strength lies in helping organizations identify frontiers of business and creating strategies to harness the limitless opportunities that exist in the worldly market at the bottom of the pyramid. So the next, you will not be doing this alone. Of course, we have another panelist, Maria Kiza. She has over 15 years of experience in the development of a renewable energy sector, and she specializes in energy transition, economy solutions, and market system development. She's equally a consultant and a renewable energy specialist, and has successfully led projects focused on sustainable energy solutions, green cities development, waste to energy, climate mitigation, and inclusive economic growth, with a deep focus on the integration of renewable technology into local and national markets. Our expertise spans across policy development, project management, financing strategies, and fostering partnerships between government, donors, and the private sector. She has worked with major organizations, including the Green Growth Institute and the Korea International Cooperation Agency. She is currently a PhD candidate at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, where her research focuses on energy access in marginalized communities, clean cooking transitions, and the adoption of clean energy technologies. Joining us for this panel session is also Aisha Suleiman, who is the co-founder of Mag Green, a climate advocacy organization dedicated to promoting sustainable development across Africa. She holds an MSc in renewable energy and green hydrogen technology. She has a deep understanding of the energy sector and is committed to advancing clean energy solutions on the continent. As the regional director for West Africa for Women in Green Hydrogen, she actively works to promote gender equality in the clean energy space while advocating for the adoption of green hydrogen technology as a key component for Africa's energy transition. Aisha frequently writes articles on climate change and energy-related topics. She is particularly focused on addressing the issue of low energy access in Africa and is dedicated to contributing to a just energy transition that ensures equitable access to clean energy for all. So we'll be having this 4 panelists join us on this discussion to dissect this topic, strengthening regulatory frameworks for clean cooking, bridging the gap between national policies and local implementation. So for all the panelists joining us, could you kindly put on your videos? I believe everyone can hear me.
Yes, so if you can stop sharing, please, so that people can see it. Thank you.
I can only see Emmanuel, Maria, and Aisha. I'm yet to see Abiodun. Once again, welcome to the panel session. Welcome, Aisha. Welcome, Maria. I believe you didn't find it hard to join in. Thank you for joining in. Abiodun is yet to join in. I think would proceed and he would join us later for want of time.
Right, I think we can proceed. I'm having a bit of difficulty putting on this video, bro.
Okay, but you can hear me loud and clear.
Very well, very well.
Okay, perfect. So we'd proceed to the panel session. I'll try to create a bit of balance here. So we'd start with ladies first, and I'll be starting with Maria, all the way from Uganda. I see the beautiful work you do in Uganda with your organization and also in collaboration with the Uganda National Alliance for Clean Cooking. So I'll start with this. How can African governments create regulatory frameworks that ensure clean cooking in a way that is both accessible and affordable for low-income countries? Based on the work you've been doing, we are all aware that there seems to be a problem with making these clean cooking solutions accessible and also affordable at the same time. So how can governments create regulatory frameworks that ensures that clean cooking is both accessible and affordable for low-income communities? Over to you, Mara.
Thank you so much, colleagues, for joining in and sparing your time to join us here. I well understand that everyone understands that we have a challenge in how we're practicing cooking in our homes, in our institutions, and in our communities. So there is need for really a collective approach, and this goes hand in hand with the regulations by the government. We need to be straight on with our governments in putting up the different frameworks that will ensure that clean cooking becomes accessible and affordable. However much sometimes these practices are really private sector led. You read my profile, I'm coming more from the private sector and representing sport. You find that, yes, however much it is a private sector led, prices are set by the private sector, we need government to be intentional on the innovations, on the different fuel types we're going to use in country, and also understanding the problem. Sometimes you find that as we put out regulations, we do not clearly understand what we are going to, so what regulatory from, or like what regulation we're trying to put forward. I'll give an example. When we are working out a solid waste management policy that was looking at the waste resource interventions within the Ministry of Lands and Urban Development back in 2017, you find that at that time, we engaged different stakeholders from government, stakeholders from private sector, and also the donors. Why we did that was to try and come up with a framework that is representative, that is inclusive of all parties that are actually involved. So how can governments create a regulatory framework for us to really benefit from? You recall that Emma, from his first presentation, highlighted the subsidies. Yes, I've seen cases even back here in Uganda and maybe other countries like Kenya, where opportunities are equally shared. We have subsidies that have been given on the liquid petroleum gas and other clean cooking technologies like ethanol, but it is not benefiting all. There is no equal distribution of such regulation. So you find that one has a subsidy, another company does not have a subsidy, and that really affects. So as we legislate, as we lobby government, especially from the private sector, we need to bring in deliberately things of like inclusivity and ensuring that everyone has equal access to the subsidies we put in place. And also the taxes. If we are reducing taxes on renewable energies and we want them to be accessible to all, then let it be an equal distribution of the taxes that should be really put forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Of course, yes. Collaboration is very paramount. There needs to be collaboration between the private sector and the government as well, and the inclusivity, as you talked about, as well as equal distribution. So I'll be moving to Aisha. From the Nigerian perspective, would you say, Sam, how can, the question remains, how can African governments create regulatory frameworks that ensures that clean cooking is both accessible and affordable in low-income communities? Over to you, Aisha.
Okay, before I proceed, how many minutes do we have to answer each question? So, 7.
In 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Okay, so since we're talking about problem of accessibility and affordability, so I think what the government can do is create policies that can cancel out financial and logistical barriers, because if you're talking about making something accessible, then it should be able to reach the last mile community from the manufacturing or wherever the clean cooking materials like stove are coming from. And then also, in order for you to cancel out the financial barriers that makes it affordable, we need to pump more investment in clean cooking technologies, because that is one way to make sure that the price of any technology can become, cost competitive. So take, for example, a woman in the village or in a rural community, using firewood to cook, and then it costs her about $10 to, do her I don't want to say dirty cooking, but to cook with like firewood, it costs her like $10 per month. That's like an average of $120 a year. And then you're coming with an alternative, and you're telling her to pay $150 per year, and she has to pay it once. She might not even listen to you, because one, it is not cost competitive, because why are you bringing, you're supposed to be bringing a better solution to me. Why are you bringing something that is more expensive? So we need to invest more money in clean cooking technologies to ensure that the price is competitive. And then we need to create more awareness for people to know that in as much as it is cost competitive with the conventional cooking method, we also need to ensure that people know about the health benefits that are related with clean cooking.
Thank you so much. Of course, there needs to be more investment and awareness as well. So I'll be moving to the next question, and I'll be starting with Emmanuel. So the question is, what role does local government play in bridging the gap between national policies and on-ground implementation? I mean, you work with the Ministry of Energy, work with NREP under the Ministry of Energy, and I would like to hear your perspective on how local governments play a role in bridging this gap, because it seems to be that all the policy formulations happens at the top and the grassroots is being left out.
Yes, thank you very much. Actually, the role of local governments in bridging policy gaps is pretty massive, because they are the ones that usually interface more with the people in their communities. Members of the central government are lesser known, because you're usually a significant distance away from these people. So in our awareness creation efforts that we have been having, you usually have to go through a member of the local government if you're actually going to get a turn up. And at times you also need their help. You have an intervention you want to roll out. The local government is the one that's going to provide you security while you're staying in the area. They are the ones who know the areas better in terms of access. They will provide you with information about the challenges, and they usually have the best information on how to bridge these gaps, because they actually live in these same communities. And they also help you with enforcement, because with the central government, you usually have a wide area to cover. And in Uganda, we have a decentralization policy where the local governments in different cities are supposed to be able to take on energy decisions on their own and develop projects and the like. So they also help you with data collection and reporting. It would be a cumbersome task for the people within the central government to be the ones to collect data. But if you engage the people within the local governments, it is usually much easier to do this. So even when it comes to enforcement of regulations, policies, you could find a simple roadblock within the city by the local government officials will be effective in stopping counterfeit products from crossing through. So I believe the role of local government in bridging policy gaps is massive.
Thank you so much. You can hear that we need to secure buy-in from local government as well, because they are the closest level of government to the people at the grassroots. And for Nigeria, in the wake of the local government autonomy, local government now has autonomy. with respect to that's fiscal autonomy. So I believe that much is going to be done. So I'll be moving to Abiodun. You'll be giving us the Nigerian perspective of how local government play in bridging this gap of clean cooking adoption at the grassroots level. What role do they play? Over to you, Abiodun.
All right, thank you very much, Unwem. I appreciate, and I also welcome all other participants to this webinar. Right, so in addition to what the previous speaker just mentioned about the local government involvement and the role they play, because if you look at the distribution and reaching the last mile itself, is actually a localized game where the local government, the various agencies at the local level, they are the ones that are actually closer to the last mile customers that we all serve and who actually benefit from the clean cooking product. Unfortunately, there is a bit of disjoint in between the top and the locals. And then the local governments are actually like, they're like local fiddles who only receive authority or information or whatever from the top government. So currently, local governments are actually not playing any major role in the implementation of clean cooking awareness, adoption, and all that. However, there are some local organizations who actually play this role, but they are private because they are closer to the people, they do programs locally, and then they tend to implement some of these things. But I believe local government has a role if they are given the free hand and they're actually also co-opted into the policy right from the beginning, where they also know the role they play and the function they need to perform. That way, it's a lot easier for us to have the local government playing a major role because they are closer to the people. But unfortunately, as we speak, local governments are not playing. But if they must play, they must be involved right from the inception of the policy, the regulation, and then in implementation. That way, it's a lot easier for them to play this role.
Definitely, I agree with you. They need to be carried along from the policy formulation stage. They need to be carried along so they'll be able to be better informed on the role they are to play to promote clean cooking adoption. Because I'll be moving towards Maria again. Okay, no, let me move to Aisha. There seems to be a kind of should I say, women. They mostly bear the brunt of going out to search for fuels for cooking, and I mean the time they would have been spending for value added activities for their own betterment of their lives, such as education or maybe taking on a job or something. They spend so much time to go search for this firewood and other nearby dirty cooking fields, and they bear most of the brunt, but most times they are not really taken into consideration when these policies are being drafted. I mean, their voice and their cries are not really reflected on these policies. So my question is, women are the primary users of cooking energy in Africa. How can regulatory frameworks be designed to prioritize gender inclusion and empowerment? We talked about inclusion, but now the question is directed towards gender inclusion and empowerment, particularly for women. So how can regulatory frameworks how can they be designed to prioritize gender inclusion and empowerment? Over to you, Aisha.
Okay, thank you very much. So you were not wrong when you said that women are the ones who bear the brunt in terms of cooking, especially in Africa, on the continent. So it is important for, the inclusion strategy or whatever to include like a bottom-up approach where women who are, bearing the brunt of this effect are included in decision-making process and also training programs. when you mentioned that instead of them going about their businesses or going to school, the cooking tend to take most of their time. So what can be done to ensure that they can actually make the most of their time while promoting clean cooking? Now we're bringing clean cooking into the equation. So during my time working with Solar Sister, so Solar Sister is focused on, recruiting, training, and supporting women on clean cooking, particularly women in the last mile community. So they have this model where you make the business of clean cooking your primary, source of income. These women are trained on the business of clean cooking, so they tend to earn a living, gain business skills, and as well, be useful to themselves and their community, while also pushing for the adoption of clean cooking and also the expansion in their community. They are scattered around in 4 African countries so far. I hope they, have capacity to increase the work that they do, because that's a very beautiful model to ensure that whatever is taking your time is just like if you have identified the problem to be cooking, taking most of the women time from them doing another thing, you now make you find an opportunity in what seems to be a problem. So you can make the problem to be an opportunity for you and also find a way of living from it. So that's one way I think women can, go about it.
Thank you. Definitely. Mara, would you say the same? Is that your perspective? Let's hear you.
Actually, I support Aisha's submission on training women to make their own renewable energy or clean cooking solutions. My case, under Smart Women in Environment and Development Organization, which I'm representing, we've actually, when we started the transition, respecting the transition in things like to be utilizing clean energy, we started from making briquettes from waste wood carbonized. So the women understood the process, because even the production manual was handled by the women. So as we started progressing through other and introducing them to other clean cooking technologies, like use of electric cooking, use of solar cookers, they're already understanding and they're actually involved in such activities. So engaging and involving women in the decision-making process will actually let them know that we respect their needs. So I support the capacity building and awareness component, but it should be a practical aspect so that they get the soft skills of making the clean cooking technologies.
Thank you. Definitely, I agree with you, especially on finding an opportunity in a problem. I mean, there's a problem and there's an opportunity as well. So I'll be moving to the next question, which covers around the price competitiveness of dirty cooking fuels in comparison with clean cooking fuels. I mean, during Emmanuel's presentation, he mentioned that there is a ban on charcoal, because you see that some governments, they have policies promoting clean cooking solutions, yet there are loose ends with regards to dirty cooking fuels, in a situation whereby somebody says that, oh, the price for charcoal is lower and you want me to switch to electric cooking and LPG and the likes. I mean, the person will definitely turn to the cheaper version. So the question is, how can what policy tools can African governments use to ensure that these clean cooking fuels like LPG, ethanol, and electricity are price competitive with the traditional fuels like charcoal? And I'll be starting with Emmanuel.
Yes, that is perfect. I noticed there was a similar question in the chat. I was wondering when I would get an opportunity to respond. So I'll start with the question where Sammy Joel asks what type of briquettes we use in light of the ban on charcoal. In Uganda, we have both the carbonized and uncarbonized briquettes. And the producers of these briquettes are still under the membership organization, the Uganda National Alliance on Clean Cooking. And there have been some trainings that have been conducted to make sure that these briquette producers are standards compliant. The last training had over 30 participants. It was facilitated by the Food and Agriculture Organization. And on how to make clean cooking technologies price competitive. The first effort that we have to make is to try and formalize the charcoal and firewood sectors. It is an uphill task, I know, but if people in this sector are not being taxed, if they are sourcing their wood from forests and they do not have to incur any costs for that, while people on clean cooking technologies are either having to face importation or manufacturing costs, then we will never have them compete in the same market. But there is a question also about if the charcoal ban has yielded any results, because let me see. Yeah, they just asked if there has been any change. So the charcoal ban on cutting trees for commercial charcoal production in northern Uganda has resulted in the price of charcoal going up significantly. I think in some areas you will find that it has gone up by more than 50% of its initial cost. And this has led to people wanting to look for alternatives. So we have some direct subsidies, for example, from the Uganda Energy Credit Capitalization Company that I mentioned earlier, where you have between 30 to 50% of the costs covered, as long as you have your national ID for Uganda. But then we would also have some tax exemptions on clean energy technologies. For example, there is zero tax on ethanol, and there is no VAT on ethanol cook stoves. We also have it's the electricity cooking tariff that is meant to incentivize cooking with electricity. And that would make these clean cooking technologies competitive once the high initial cost is dealt with. Yes, I submit.
Definitely. Thank you for your response. Bjordan, I believe should I go over the question again?
Go ahead.
Are you there?
I'm there. Just put up a question.
Okay, I should go ahead. So what's your perspective on this? Okay, go ahead.
Right. You see, on that issue of government regulation on the fuel is actually tough, because this is a means of livelihood for the people who trade in charcoal. If you must put a ban on the use of charcoal in trying to save the environment, we must be ready to provide a better alternative for this means of livelihood. Because where there is no buyer, there are no supplier. So if you must put a ban on the charcoal, we must be able to now take the same briquettes to the same people who sell charcoal, because they are closer to the users. They are the best bet to promote the use of briquettes. But the moment we promote the use of briquettes within ourselves as elites and the people who are policymakers, we are producers, and then we leave the people who actually survive on that livelihood out of the picture, I can tell you, ban will be banned on paper, but you now realize that the consumption of charcoal will be higher during the ban period, because they now do it in secret, and then they tend to burn and do more in secret, and then it finds its way into the market. It has always been the case when government just places ban as the measure to deter people from doing certain things. You realize that when they put ban on the importation of rice and some items, you realize that smuggling becomes higher during the same period. And you continue to ask yourself, how come you still have more rice in the market when there's a ban on them? So it's the same thing with charcoal. If the same people who sell charcoal are not the same people who sell briquettes, and we encourage the production of briquettes from farm waste, where the farmers or the people who produce charcoal are the ones that we have trained to use farm and agric waste to produce the same briquette that goes through the same channel of distribution, gets into the hands of the charcoal retailers, I can tell you categorically, we are just paying lip service to this whole process. But
Thank you very much.
From the roots, right, and then bring it back to the consumer, use of briquettes won't be too difficult to adopt, and see an improvement in what we all are trying to achieve. All right.
Thank you. Thank you. Emmanuel is saying there should be a ban, there should be a penalty. And Abiodun is saying that's not enough. That in addition to that, there needs to be a just transition from the dirty cooking fuel to the clean cooking fuel, taking into consideration that some persons are going to lose their means of livelihood. And I also agree that there needs to be a combination of both to adequately ensure that the price competitiveness issue is being adequately addressed. Emmanuel, your hand is up.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I fully agree with Mr. Biodun. And in Uganda, actually, there are talks of doing this. And with our national integrated clean cooking strategy, charcoal and firewood have not been eliminated. Like we mentioned in the policy, they are still a big part of our energy mix. And as such, we have the promotion of improved cook stoves, where you know that not everybody is going to transition at once. So our 2040 target of clean energy access recognizes, clean cooking access recognizes that there will be some people who are still in the process of transition, because I do not think we can have someone transition from a 3-stone fire all the way to an electric pressure cooker or induction cooker. The best they may do is transition to maybe a solar-aided firewood cook stove or a more efficient stove. Then maybe they will get to the charcoal stove. Maybe they will use LPG gas at some point and then transition. The conference before the last one in 2023, I believe, was on a just transition to clean energy. And that is a focus in Uganda. Yes, despite the ban. The ban was mainly focused on environmental protection. It had really become a serious situation.
Thank you, Emmanuel. I agree with you too. Not everyone gets to transition to cooking with clean cooking fuel at the same time. And of course, everybody's interest needs to be captured. This takes us to the next question. During your presentation, you talked about collaboration. Even during one of the panelists gave answer to a particular question, and he still re-emphasized collaboration between government and private sectors, and even international and development partners. So the question is, how can government work with private sector and international partners to scale up clean cooking infrastructure and financing? This is because the infrastructure and the financing are one of the major problems, one of the major challenges that delays, or would I say hinder, the scale up of clean cooking in Africa. So I'd be moving to Maria to share her perspective on this. Over to you, Maria.
Thank you so much for asking that question on how private sector actually gets to participate. Intrigued by the previous speakers talking about the just transition, you find that just here, East Africa, our neighbors in Kenya have really put at the front private sector companies in improving, for example, biomass stoves into clean cooking. So that deliberate sort of investment in innovation is crucial. We have actually some of these innovations crossing now borders to come to Uganda, and we're trying to adopt these as different households and institutions. But in addition to that, what we can do to bring on board participation of private sector and international partners, you've been briefed by my colleague Emma that in Uganda, we have an annual renewable energy conference where we discuss public-private partnerships to ensure that there is collaboration. And in such a conference, there is space given to stakeholders to showcase different innovation. It is an expo at the end of the day, where you see exhibitions on mobility, on cooking, and there is also one thing I love to advocate for is when you create an enabling environment for private sector. If you provide such incentives, you give them programs that they can implement with government. You give them, for example, exhibitions where they can contribute their human resource, but you're contributing a platform as government that will work quite well for us. I've seen it happen in the different exhibitions because I'm part of the Uganda National Clean Cooking Alliance on Clean Cooking and also National Renewable Energy Platform. I'm a member. So with the platforms we get from what has been organized, as private sector, we feel very comfortable to provide information and feedback to government in whatever we experience in our business and also suggest ways. So that open feedback to government helps us to follow very well and comply with some of the policies, but also understand the developments that are happening within the sector. Thank you.
Definitely. Incentives are very important. Abiodun, you're coming from the private sector. Would you say same? What's your take on this as well?
Thank you. Well, you see, I strongly agree with the assertion that there must be a strong collaboration between the public and the private sector. But unfortunately, I'm a private person, but I will tell you this, that the percentage of that collaboration as expected, I will tell you it's about 10%. That's an honest truth. Because in most cases here, the government behaves like the lords, that whatever they say is the final. Yet you want us to solve problems together. Even if you have a way of putting up your policy or regulation, there must be a way you also want it implemented. And in a situation where you now have a disjointed public sector, where the Ministry of Finance is saying one thing, the Ministry of Environment is saying another thing, and another ministry is saying something different. And you get to each of them at different times where you need their support and you want them to speak in one voice. Then one tells you whatever the first one has told you is their problem. We are in charge of this and this is what we want to do and this is how we want you to do it. By so doing, I can tell you that it's a bit difficult for private sector like us to actually put in all our resources into a system that is a bit disjointed, okay? So I will give you a typical example of what I'm trying to describe. A situation where you import components that you want to actually manufacture, because we also want to localize some of these manufacturing facilities. You understand what I'm saying? And then we can do it locally to the benefit of the people. And then this also drive down the pricing. But unfortunately, you get to the point of bringing in raw materials. Because the people who are at the point of entry don't understand some of these materials, they don't even know them, then they give you wrong classification for duty payment. And then you are trying to explain to them and they are telling you, well, Mr. Man, this is all we know. And this is how you have to do it. And you just have to pay the money. So what you see eventually is that if private sector like us end up paying such an amount, the only place I would transfer it will be the consumers. Because I don't have any other place to transfer the cost. But where you have gotten a kind of synergy in between the Ministry of Finance and Environment to now tell them these are environmental friendly products that help us to reduce pressure on certain places, or we are trying to use it to mitigate a particular problem. You know, it's going to be a lot easier for them to also synchronize and say, oh, we know the purpose of this product and we know what it's going to do in actual effect in the life of the people. But when you find out that there is a bit of a disjointed collaboration, I doubt if anything infrastructure will come into play, especially in Africa. When you look at the way we are running now, we are really running behind time, yet we are having very daunting targets before us. Right.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Aisha, let's hear your take on this question too.
Okay, so in continuation with what Mr. Abiodun was saying, public and private partnership is very important because especially when you talk about scaling up, the impact. So imagine like you have a local startup which built an app that would enable you sell LPG to consumers, let's say in a particular remote community, or let's say in Abuja or Lagos particularly. So they, as a private entity, there's not so much that they can do in terms of reaching, the entire 36 states in Nigeria. So because of funding and capacity. So where the scaling up comes in is if they are able to partner with government and international organizations, which will come in as donors, then that app that they have built can, easily be replicated. And then the impact would increase to not just a particular remote community in a particular state, but they will be able to scale up and reach more people. So it's very important, and government needs to, look at the public and private partnership and be serious about it.
Of course, I mean, that's true. The Abiodun is saying that there needs to be a synergy between the internally first within the government ministries before you talk of bringing in the private sector to partner together, because it kind of delays the whole process. And I mean, you also talked about the financing too. So definitely they work hand in hand in order to create the desired impact of clean cooking adoption by all. So we'll be wrapping up soon, but before we do, I just want to hear your take on subsidies. I mean, Emmanuel talked about subsidies, that the subsidies are directed towards some clean cooking solutions, well, some are not covered. So even in the wake of these subsidies, how can governments regulate clean cooking sector in a way that it promotes the manufacturing of stoves and fuels instead of relying on importation? We are aware that most of the components of these stoves cannot they are not produced in Africa. It's mostly imported, and that translates the cost. At the end of the day, the production cost would translate down to the final consumer. And this is quite expensive and capital intensive also for the manufacturer. So how can government regulate these subsidies in such a way that it promotes manufacturing of these stoves and fuels within Africa instead of relying on importing these solutions in? So I would be starting with Abiodun. I believe you can hear me.
Very well. So maybe I'll beg to twist that question a bit, all right? To say, rather than say government to regulate, all right? But I'd rather say, how does government actually encourage, all right? Because if they regulate, they will also strangle. Because they will only try to tighten up and say, oh, they don't want import. They don't want import. However, we've seen from experience locally that most of the local producers struggles with the foreign manufacturers in terms of pricing. So how do you now do that? That you are saying you want to strangle one and then you want to encourage another? Because the local ones don't have the required capacity. And there's some of these raw materials that are actually useful that needs to be used are also not readily available in countries. So for me, I think the best will be for government to see how they can actually encourage the local manufacturing of those cook stoves, all right? By bringing in the spare parts, some raw materials that we don't have, that we can bring it into the African continent. Because the African continent is suffering from, we are suffering more from manufacturing. We do more of extractive, that they take the raw materials away from us and then they process it, they do value addition, and then they bring it back. That has been the process. So if that's what we want to do, it's better we just encourage those people who produce outside the country to produce locally and then strengthen our own local producers too, who can actually source material from some of these same places and then they can produce locally. By so doing, we will have more producers on ground, the price becomes a bit competitive, and then we can actually reach the actual target rather than saying the imported ones, the locally made ones. Because between you and I, consumers, I've been in this business for a while, and I've seen that most African consumers are aesthetics buyers. You bring the product that is locally made and bring the one that is imported. Even if the price is higher, the local people will still go and buy the one that is higher. That tells you the aspirational buyers. They like things that are good. They like the finance and all that. Even if they don't know how to operate, they will go buy them. So that tells you that the market auto determines what we want to produce. So this is the reason why I will use a typical example. I'm good that Aisha is here. She works with, she said she has worked with Solar Sister before. And I'll share you a typical example of what has happened. I actually introduced cooking stove to Solar Sister because we do more of a B2B kind of business.
Okay.
We do B2C, all right? And at some point, they were coming back to us to say the price was the determinant or was the reason why customers were not buying cook stoves. And I told them, price is not the problem. That you need to meet those customers at the point of their needs and meet their desire. We were selling a product for 5,500. There was a stove we were selling for 5,500. We found it very difficult to sell that product in almost 1 year. You won't believe me. You won't believe it. We brought in another product, a model that cost us 12,000 naira. I sold 3,500 of that stove in less than 6 months. Bulk of it was sold through Solar Sister, where we got the complaints that these people were not ready to buy product of 5,500 because we were looking at the pricing we see. And by the time we asked them a question, why did you buy 12,000 and then you left 5,500? They said, can't you see that this one looks more tech and it looks well? When somebody sees it in my kitchen, they will know that I'm using something that is nice. That the other one you were selling for 5,500 looks like a skeleton. Can you imagine that? So you can see that some of these things has its own sides, and we need to balance it up properly so that we don't just say regulate. We must be sensitive to the customers and see how we can meet their needs and then ultimately reach the general objective, right?
Thank you. Thank you. Our building is saying government should be coming from the perspective of encouraging rather than regulating. And of course, the consumers, the market is a very huge determinant of the adoption of clean cooking solutions, as most consumers, they tend to go with the ones that look fine and not what is homegrown. And I believe that we can do better as individuals in our individual choices to also promote what we have rather than always importing in every time. So I'll be moving to Emmanuel to briefly, in just 2 minutes or 1 minute, just add something.
Okay, I actually fully agree with the previous speaker. Just like us to picture a country like Uganda right now, and if we were to say we wanted to manufacture electric pressure cookers locally, would the price really drop? Because we are importing these systems from a country that has established automated systems, perhaps, that can produce hundreds, if not thousands, of the appliance in a day. And if we bring it back locally, we may have to make the same amount. We may struggle to make even 20 in a particular period because of the lack of capacity building. So you will actually find that it would be higher priced if we were to try and manufacture it locally. But I believe local manufacture is still the way to go. I believe there is need for a step-by-step approach to this. What we have started with is training in repair and maintenance in Uganda. And this is happening over the different cities, so that if people have brought it in, it can be repaired. I believe that is an avenue to move into modification and eventually local manufacture. We have Buy Uganda, Build Uganda policy that is meant to facilitate or incentivize local manufacture as well. And for example, if we have improved cook stoves, there should be some affirmative action where for the improved cook stove that can be manufactured locally, you would opt for that one instead of the international one, or maybe just give it a lower subsidy. And in that regard, we also have to move away from the blanket subsidies and go towards more targeted subsidies in that regard. So instead of providing a subsidy that will benefit people in the urban areas who could probably afford this technology without the subsidy, you should be able to give it to incentivize these products being taken to a rural area, for example, or an informal settlement. There is also the de-risking of the investment by these people through the public-private partnerships that have been mentioned throughout this call. And with that, I would like to submit.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for your contribution. So we'll wrap this panel session up with just kind of each of you would give the way forward, just in 1 minute, taking turns, the way forward. So I'll start with Emmanuel again. In 1 minute, what is the way forward?
When it comes to a way forward, I believe we should mainstream awareness creation and also partnerships. Like I mentioned, the National Renewable Energy Platform brings together various stakeholders, and among those stakeholders is academia. I believe we should empower academia to be able to support policy, because you have thousands of thirsty students at the university that are willing to do the research for you instead of going out and incurring extra costs with trying to get research done. And also that would help them also grow within the sector, in that they will be doing research that speaks to the energy sector or the clean cooking sector. Yes, that is.
Thank you very much. Of course, the academic institution plays a very important role around research and development. At the end of the day, informs the policies too and the frameworks established by the government. I'll be moving to Maria in 1 minute.
Thank you so much. 1 minute. I love to see international partnerships to trigger local manufacturing, for example. I want to speak to research and development. I've had cases where some local technologies have been built from research and development, and also testing and standardization. Let's not fear that maybe our products are local from the continent, but we can improve them when we go into deliberate international partnerships and R&D. It will help us start a case study, a story on local clean cooking technologies. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria, of course. Over to you, Aisha.
Okay, so my final words with it, everyone has talked about awareness, so I'll talk about research and capacity building, particularly for the local manufacturers, because in continuation with what Abiodun and Emmanuel had said, about local manufacturing being one of the way we can move forward from this. So, and they also made mention of us having like the local materials and, in the extractive industries, we take out these raw materials, export it, they process it, and then we import it from them for our local manufacture again. So it's like a cycle that can be stopped with adequate capacity building opportunities for the manufacturers and also research. We'll be amazed at how much we can actually find if we do proper research, because if they're taking away these natural resources from us and converting it into materials that they then export back to us to produce this clean cooking stove materials, then if we actually invest in capacity building and research, why can't we do it over here? Because we have the natural resources, and it's actually be even cheaper at the long run to produce this material locally without the need for importing external materials from outside. Because what we do more is more of coupling. So I wouldn't really say local manufacturing. So we should invest more in research and development and also capacity building. Over to you, Owen.
Over to you, Abiodun, in 1 minute.
All right, thank you very much, Owen, and thanks to everyone. My takeaway from here will be that I will encourage us as individuals, as Africans, to be it government or private, that we should be more patriotic to our policy making, implementation, and at the same time, the execution and monitoring of those policies in such a way that we can all benefit as a country, as a continent, ultimately, and then we can achieve our goal if we can keep to this. Right, thanks.
When you are muted, Barrister, you are muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you so much for joining in, for making out time to join in on this section to dissect this topic, bringing in different perspectives from Uganda, from Nigeria, from the private sector, the public sector as well. This was an amazing section. And I believe that each and every one of us that are on this webinar, we have learned a lot. And if you have questions, prepare your questions, because very soon we'll be moving to the question and answer session. If you have questions from the presentation and from the panel session as well, get your questions ready. We would be addressing them very soon. Before we move to the question and answer session, I would be talking about the upcoming activities. This is a brief segment where we'll be informing you about our upcoming activities, and this session will be taken by the Operations Manager for Tavera Energy Limited, Esluk Ipokonte. Over to you, Esluk. I believe you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you, Barrister. Thank you so much, our panelists. Thank you, Emmanuel, for the beautiful presentation. I really, really learned a lot. Barrister, kindly put your screen on slideshow and take me to the previous slide, please. I really, really did learn a lot. I mean, there's a lot of intersection between the local governments and policy implementation. I strongly believe that a bridge in knowledge gap would really help to alleviate the challenges that African countries are facing, and also need to boost the willingness of the locals to adopt clean cooking solutions. A lot of them really do not understand the benefits that they get on a global scale. When you're interacting with them one-on-one, you realize that a lot of them know that, yes, there's a lot of health benefits to it, but what do we stand to gain? So these are one of the major challenges that Africans have generally. Previous slide, please. Can we go to the opportunities corner then? And so hearing from these professionals has really, really broadened the landscape for me. I mean, it's beautiful to know that there are a lot of policies that are in Uganda that are actually working, and to know that some of these policies may not actually work in Nigeria. And Jordan has given his own perspective of how he thinks it should be handled in Nigeria. Meanwhile, Aisha has come up to tell us that, hey, so it's a gender bias thing and we need to involve a lot of women. And then Maria really, really agrees because she has expertise in the private sector concerning implementation of clean cooking policies. This is really beautiful. So while Emmanuel was presenting, he mentioned a lot of beautiful things. And one of the key takeaways that I had was the mindset change. I strongly believe that behavioral changes has a lot to do with clean cooking adoption and policy implementation as well. And he also mentioned the academia to support policy. This is one of the drives of Vero Energy. For us, we have the third edition of the Africa International Conference on Clean Energy and Energy Storage, which will be hosted here in Nigeria at the University of Port Harcourt come September 25th and 26th. And it's for the last two editions, it has been a beautiful platform to cross-share knowledge and to bridge the gap between R&D and innovation. We've seen a lot of beautiful ideas that are going on in the academia, and then major stakeholders that are in the government that handle the policy creation, those of them that are into building cook stoves don't really know how much research that the academia has done. So it has really been a beautiful platform to have a nexus between R&D and innovation, and we really encourage you all to participate, to send in your researches. You know, it's not just a physical activity, we're also going to have it streamed live. You can join us when the time comes. For those of you that will have your mails, you will definitely be getting updates from us. We're also expecting the fourth edition of 54 Sparks, and this time it's a very, very interesting topic. We are going to be exploring financing and investments around clean cooking, as well as the carbon markets ecosystem around clean cooking. For us, we think that a lot of people have challenges when it comes to investing in clean cooking technologies, clean cooking policies, and they really don't understand how the carbon market works around this. But we know that there are a lot of benefits from the carbon market when it comes to clean cooking development. And come March, we're going to be exploring this in a beautiful way. Then, Tovero Energy also have the Clean Cook Advocates Program. So Emmanuel mentioned mindset change, and he said that in Uganda, they're thinking of how to get the locals to become advocates of clean cooking adoption. Yes, this is something that Tovero Energy is actively working upon. So we're going to have a program where we would have a lot of locals enroll, and then we're going to be teaching them about clean cooking ecosystem in general. We're not just going to stick to, hey, stop cooking with dirty fuels and adopt electric cooking or adopt biogas and all of that. We're going to be telling you how the policies work. We're going to be telling you how the technology is evolving. We're going to be giving you a broader mindset of what clean cooking is actually about, so that you can go into your local communities. And then when you talk to people, they'll be like, yeah, this really makes sense. I think I should adopt clean cooking instead of fetching firewood from the forest. Technical, can you please take me to the opportunities corners? So these are the major activities that we have coming up with us at Tovero Energy. While we have that in stock, there are lots of opportunities that clean cooking has in the global space. There are grants, fundings, and partnerships that are available for organizations to.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are. Go
Okay,
ahead.
great. Yes, so there are a lot of grants and fundings, partnerships that are available for clean cooking investments. Currently, we have decarbonizing humanitarian energy. So currently, we have the Decarbonizing Humanitarian Energy Funding and Partnership from the German Federation Foreign Office. This is hosted through UNITAR, and it's in partnership with UNDP and NOCAP. It is available for organizations within Nigeria and Niger. To be closing on the 31st of December. So if you are in this area and if you're in this geographical area and you're interested in the funds, you can as well apply. The link is being displayed here on the screen. We also have the West Africa Clean Cooking Fund. It's currently still open till the 31st of December. It's open to all countries within West Africa, and it is funded by the Worthington Companies Foundation. Currently, Norwegian agency is giving funding for renewable energy investments. The ODA funding is available to some eligible countries. You can check their sites for eligibility criteria, and it is also available till the 31st of December 2025. So yes, these are opportunities that you should not miss out on if you are thinking of investing in clean cooking development. While we also encourage partnerships, if you're interested in partnering with 54 Sparks, you're really interested in spreading this news to your various countries, especially for Emmanuel, where the NREP is really interested in creating clean cook advocates. We have a training available. We have our program available. So we will be sharing the link with you. I think it should be shared in the chat box currently. And we'll give you more details if you're interested in partnering with us, of course. So this has been an amazing session. I don't know. So we'll be taking a goodwill message from Engineer Anthony. He is the Chief Operations Officer for Tuvero Energy. And so I would like you to say a word or two as the session is approaching its end. Over to you, Engineer Anthony.
Thank you very much, Peace. OM, if you can stop sharing your screen so that. Thank you very much, Aisha, Suleiman, Piotr Larry, Laure, Emmanuel, and also Maria Kiza for your wonderful presentation. We are sure and happy that all our attendees have gotten back with that benefited from your wealth of experience and knowledge that you've shared on this webinar. And thank you very much all to OM for the excellent work you did in moderating this, and also everyone that is on the call. We are, like Peace has said, our activity is around for the purposes of this webinar. We are seeing how to galvanize support to within Africans, and that's the essence for the 54 sparks, because it represents the 54 countries in the African continent. So we are seeing how we can mobilize ourselves together to advance access to clean cooking, not just at the surface level where we discuss about it, or at the national level, but down to the subnationals, the villages, the communities, the families, where we know that the effect of this is being felt all over. We don't need to reel out the stats on the number of persons that lose their lives because of cooking with polluting fuels and technologies. So we are hoping that with this, that we can galvanize interest and resources and people all over the continent to contribute their quota towards advocacy and also towards promotion of clean cooking technologies and fuels in their communities. So thank you again for taking out time to join. I don't know if, I know there was the last link or poll that we're supposed to take. When has that been taken? Okay. When if you are speaking, I can't hear you.
The poll has been taken. I think what is left is the post-webinar questions.
Okay, okay, all right. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time, and we hope to see you again in 2 weeks' time when we'll be discussing other activities and other interesting topic around clean cooking in Africa. So thank you again and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you to Kenti also for the wonderful work in behind the scenes for this, and everyone at Tuvero Energy. Thank you, Dapo. Thank you, Dorothy. We hope to have you on the panel real soon. Thank you. And also thank you to Aisha Munu from our colleagues in Sierra Leone who are also co-organizing this webinar series with us. Thank you, and we hope to see you guys in the next edition. Thank you, and it's bye from me.
All right, thank you so much, Engineer Anthony. Thank you all for your time. Have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.